Welcome to week 5 and 35 days into this. So congratulations, we're getting close to halfway there. And you guys are extraordinary. You really are. Now, I just want to do a quick little review. And I want to thank a lot of the people who've been sending things through to us. We have their benchmarks, we have their notes, we have gold cards people have been sending in. And people have also, from last week, have purchased our abundance pack. And you may recall the abundance pack is this pack with all of the goodies in it, all of the DVDs, and with the special super duper little thumb drive, which we're so proud of. So I was just talking to one of the clients there and just going through her situation, and it's extraordinary. In her letter, she says, "Roy, I need you." She's got some tax issues. She's got some cash flow. She's lent money to people, hasn't got paid back. Got some property. She's got a business. I mean, a lot of opportunities here. And like everything, it all comes down to getting organized. So congratulations to all of the work. And I'm really impressed, I've got to say. And it's a funny thing, what you put in is what you get out. You put a little in, you get a little out. And people putting a lot in, you're obviously getting a lot out. So I'm really impressed. Now, if you're one of the people who are just sort of on the fence here, not doing that much, haven't sent your gold card in yet, haven't sent your benchmark, then I want to say you're really missing out. And I mean that in the most positive way I can. Those people have sent this material. If you send us your address as well, we'll be sending you the bonus book, Roy's book, $1 to $1 Million in 7 years or less. I think I've got one here somewhere. He's reaching around, and there we go. Yep. 50,000 copies. So, and in there some DVDs as well, but great book. So that'll be sent to you, and also your gold card. And we'll be also sending you, for those people who are a bit more computer literate, we have a link, a free app for the gold card, which is a replication of the gold card. So you can use your smartphone. And it will remind you of your goals, and you can set each month up freshly. I also want to talk a little bit about a review there about last week we talked about reducing debt and borrowing money and using credit cards. Also, not being a serial spender, and never go online to get credit cards. And although there's a lot of work on credit cards, the reason we spend time on this is if you can't deal with $1,000, $10,000 credit card, how are you going to deal with really a property transaction? And really handling your money and being authentic around credit is hugely important. And you may recall we also have good debt, bad debt. We have cards that you're going to use for business purposes. Those cards are very, very important because the tax department looks after those and accepts them as a proper receipting process for a transaction because they can trace the supplier. So if you're going to Officeworks, if you're going to getting fuel, if you're paying for your mobile phone or your internet with a credit card, all those are going to be receipts to you. All those are going to be ways of being able to record your credit facilities. So that'll be really important. Let's move on though to this week. Week 5, we're looking for the vehicle, property, business, and online and networking. So it's about the path and it's about the way. The way to prosperity is the way. The way to prosperity is the way. And there's a path to this. And I'm going to suggest to you that the path will be a vehicle. The path will be a vehicle which is whatever you want to do. We don't maintain that something's better or not than anything else, but there is an important aspect of your business activities, or if you like, focus. And our experience is about 60% of the people on this call, on this video link, will do property. That's just our numbers that's been going for years and years and years. About 20-30% of you'll use the vehicle of business, and about 5 or 10, maybe up to 15, and we have had cases up to 20% will use share trading as the vehicle. Now, I'll talk firstly about property if I could, and I'm just going to give you some background into what we do. As you know, we don't sell properties to our clients. We don't sell off the plan home units. We don't do that. We do a lot of joint ventures, mind you. However, that's more in our trading side. But I'd like to talk briefly about the major distinctions of property. Most people, when we say what the market's doing, when people talk about real estate, they're usually thinking about residential property, and they're usually thinking about their area. So when I ask them, how's the property market going, they think I'm talking residential. Well, the first thing is, the question you need to ask is really, are you talking about commercial, industrial, shopping complexes, residential? If you were talking about one of those, which area were you talking about? And which country? So planet Earth is a real estate process. And here in Australia, where in the city you're coming from, we normally work with residential property within 5K of where you live or where you wish to live. And that's our target property transaction. In this market, we'd like to teach you to be able to trade property. 20% of the market is sold above the market. 60% is sold at the market. That's why it's called the market. And 20% is sold below the market in residential. In fact, most markets, that's the same. You could say the same of a pair of boots or a car or anything, houses, commercial property, doesn't matter. 20% are sold because people get emotionally involved. They're the often early entry into a product. They'll pay above the price. They'll line up outside Apple to get the latest piece of equipment, and 3 months later, it's already been reduced. So they're the early entries. In real estate, people at auction paying too much will be outbid on that setup of what's going on. And, people just want things. All they need is two people wanting it badly, and they'll go against each other. Sometimes three people will go against each other. And I'm sure you've seen this happen. So there's certainly no prizes to be the highest bidder at the auction. It's a bit like playing golf, and you get very excited about, I made the high score. The trick is all profit is in the purchase. And if you're taking notes, it's one of our principles. All profit is in the purchase. So we buy well. 60% is the market. That's why it's called the market. That's when people have looked around, they know the market, and they just pay what I call retail at the market. And a lot of people do that. So that really takes care of 80%, the 20% who pay too much, and the 60% who pay market. We buy wholesale, however, and we teach our people to buy wholesale. And this is below the market buy, which is 20%. Now, how does that happen? Well, how it happens is that there's a divorce, there's a mortgagee in possession, there's a person has to sell, there's a person going overseas, there's a deceased estate. There are many, many, many reasons why these properties sell under the market. In the end of the day, there'll be 20% of the market that will be sold under the market. And when we're looking at areas that of the real estate market, in Australia, there's over 300,000 properties on the market. So that's about 60,000 will sell below the market. That's a lot of properties. Now, in your state or your city, there could be 10, 20,000, or in a particular suburb, there could be 1,000 properties. I mean, it depends what the suburb is, but we're talking about a lot of properties here. And the real estate agents that you're dealing with will not show you these properties or talk about them. They will only show usually vendors who are selling and tell them about that, so they can soften the vendor up, or the word is in real estate terms, condition the vendor to getting their price down. So real estate agents, as a rule, tend to get vendors to try and get their price down, purchasers to get their price up, and somewhere where they meet in the middle, real estate occurs. As a buyer, we want to buy under the market. So if your vehicle is going to be real estate, then you want to make your profit on the purchase. Now, we have 4 basic rules, and if you want to write these down: number 1, shortest time to make our money. Number 2, minimum cash in. Number 3, minimum risk. Number 4, maximum profit. And these sound like good rules. So how do we achieve this? We achieve it by buying under the market. And we actually achieve it by using some technology around this as well. And tonight I don't have a lot of time to go into this, but we cover it in our abundance packs. We cover it in our Life Magic programs, where we spend a whole day on this subject. But let me just briefly say that we use options to buy property. Option is a right, not an obligation. It means you can, for a very small amount of money, control a property for a period of time. Why do people do this? Both sides, because a lot of people ask the question, say, why would someone enter an option? We do this every month. In fact, I would give an option on one of my own properties. What I want is someone who wants to do their due diligence. They want to check it out. They're going to spend money. And if you owned a property and I came to you and I said, I'm very interested in this property, we agree on the price. I don't want you changing the price on me. I don't want you changing the terms and conditions, but I want to do my due diligence and I need time to check it out. I want to know that I can put a granny flat at the back. I want to know that I can do a boundary adjustment. I want to know that I can do a renovation. I want to know I can put a pool in. I want to know that I can get my finance. I want to know stuff like that. So what it is, I'm going to spend money with valuations. I'm going to spend money on renovators to give me quotes. I'm going to spend time and money on engineers, on town planners, on a whole range of things. And I don't want to be, taken advantage of in any way. So I need some time. Now, whether that's a month or 2 months or 3 months, I take options for a year when I'm doing a subdivision. So what I do is I get control of the property for a fee, for an amount of money, and that could be $1, could be $1,000, and I'm buying time. If I don't proceed, they keep the money, and I lose mine. I can touch wood. I can think of no option I've ever taken in 50 years that I haven't exercised. Now, not that that's necessarily the most important thing, but it's true. When I take an option, I'm serious about the purchase. I do my homework. Unless it's something that hasn't been explained to me or I can't see the advantage, I'm going to proceed. So there is a case where we've taken control of a property, and here's some surprise to some of you, and it's fairly complex. You can actually sell the option. You don't even have to settle the property. And you can make, I've sold an option for $20,000. I've been offered $1 million for my option. On a building in 174 Willoughby Road, it was a commercial building. I took an option for $20,000 for 6 months. Within 6 weeks of that option, I was offered $1 million for my option for the price I took that option on. So options are very powerful. Now, that's just one. There are a number of these techniques. There's about 8 that we look at. Another one is where you enter into a contract and you have a thing called a conditional contract. A conditional contract could be that of subject to finance. It could be subject to doing soil test on a piece of land, or it could be subject to a builder's inspection. It could be subject to a lot of things. This is when you've put a deposit down and you've got a conditional contract which gives you a time to actually work with this. So here are cases where you can get money partners in to help you. There's a whole range of areas. And why I'm telling you about this is that in residential property, what we train people to do is do flips or flicks, if you will, where you take control of a property, you sell it on in a very short amount of time. And this could be 3 months, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be just a fraction over a year, but a relatively short time from the normal buy and hold story. Now, when you're buying or taking control of a property under the market, you can see that you've already made your profit before you start. And what we do in this particular case is we teach people how to get in there, get that renovation done, that tidy up or very simple makeover complete, and then clean the property up and put it back on the market very quickly. And a makeover can be done in 4 weeks, in 6 weeks. In fact, you can do a renovation completely within 8. It's all about having your dream team together, having your builders organized, your plumbers and carpenters and your painters and landscapers, etc., and really having a team. You'll learn from our programs that you don't have to do it all, but you must lead it. And it's all about leadership. And I don't know whether you know, but I'm just doing a seminar this week on leadership and training. And I'm going to ask you a question. You can put on the screen here. If you can tell me the answer, you may win something. 9/10 of leadership. 9/10 of leadership. What is 90% of leadership? If you could say one word. And the winner will get something, so we'll see. There are people who had said, oh, leadership is all about making decisions, and it is. It's about trust, okay? It's about action. Yeah, all that's true. But there's Melissa saying leadership is about mindset, it's about influence. Well done. That's not the one, but that's true, and all these things are true. So it's worth going for this and see if we can get, I'll give you a book, one of our books, and you can, if you can get it. So we've got some time to figure it out. I'll come back to this while you're thinking. Now, coming back to what we're talking about is basically creating income streams. You may recall that we need how many income streams? 5 minimum. First income stream, if you're into property, will be trading property, and you're looking for $25,000 to $50,000. Now, if you can take control of a property, put it back on the market, turn it around, and produce a $25,000, $50,000 arrangement, then this has been good. For some people, $50,000 is an entire year's income, and you've done it in one transaction. In our program at Life Magic, we spend a whole day on this, and we cover things like how not to pay stamp duty legally, how not to even have to go to a bank and do this transaction, how to do this and minimize your tax in the shortest time, maximum profit, least risk, minimum cash in. So there's just some ideas to think about with property. So it's quite an attractive plan. Another area on property and funding is we can use self-managed super funds. A lot of people don't realize that. In fact, you can get together with a group of people and pool your self-managed fund, or you can create a self-managed fund. Now, you may recall in this area, I'm not giving you personal advice to go out tomorrow and put a self-managed super fund together and try and flip a property. There's a lot of rules, and you need to get it straight, and you need some good advice in this and some proper advice and structural advice, and it must be done with precision. And the capital that you use has got to go back. But there's a lot of profit in these transactions, and you can even joint venture with a super fund. That means to say you can use a super fund and a non-super fund to do a transaction. You can use a thing called a corporation that has a trust with it, a proprietary limited company with a trust, and it can have a unit trust, and the super fund can buy units in that fund to do that transaction. Now, this is getting very complex now. But what I'm really trying to show you is there's more than one way. You don't necessarily have to have 20, 30, 40% deposit, pay stamp duty, have a job that creates all this income to justify a mortgage. That's just one way. There's many, many ways. You can also use money partners to do transactions. And we have a lot of money partners that do this. So there is no real limitation other than what the mind can conceive and perceive. Are there risks? Yes. Is this guaranteed? No. So your due diligence, your training, everything you need to know. And I'd like you to remind you of the 4 magic words we said when we started, the 4 magic clues. Number one, you need knowledge. And you may recall that in our very first session we ever talked about. Knowledge about the real estate market, knowing your target area, knowing the target transaction you're going to deal with, know the target profit you're going to make, know the target team that you're going to put together to make these things work. So this is why we take 12 months to get you organized, to do one real estate transaction, to do 100 feasibilities on transactions, 100 offers. And we've never had one person do 100 without doing a transaction. And some people do it on their 3rd and 5th and 10th and 23rd. I had a guy, 54 offers, 54 to get to the one. I've never met a person who's done 100, but we always say 100. So we're giving you some kind of clues here about trading property, how to do that. And the first part is understanding. But there's a deeper part that we do in Life Magic called, sorry, knowledge was the first thing. The second part is understanding. That's the deeper knowledge. So the first thing is knowledge. Second thing is understanding. You know how you can know certain stuff but not understand it truly? And the way to know if you really understand something, if I gave you a tax consideration and asked you, this is some knowledge, do you understand it? You may have to say to me, what do you mean? I'll say, well, can you explain it to me? If you can explain it clearly, then there's a good chance you understand it. In other words, there's a depth that goes beyond just the knowledge. And then the third thing, the third step really is what we call transition, transformation. So we have some knowledge, we have some understanding, then we're transforming ourselves. And what we're doing is we're going to the fourth area, which is liberation, which is really like freedom. So these steps are using vehicles such as property to do that. And we're using property trading, residential, as this example. Now, why do we use residential to trade? Well, usually most people are a little bit more familiar within 5K of where they live of that market and can get familiar with it fairly quickly. And there's a lot of agents around there that can show them properties, and it's usually something that they're more familiar with, because the bigger market they're not so familiar with, and that's the commercial market. And what is commercial? That means office blocks. It can be a strata office, which could be equal to a house in your area. In other words, if your area has a $5,000, excuse me, a $500,000 property in a house or unit in your area, you could buy a strata office for $500,000. So it's a sort of similar money. And the reason we use those is because of the yield. And I'm going to use some terms here which may confuse some, but you don't have to remember all this that I'm talking about. You just need to get the general idea of what this is and the concept, if you wish, a strategy. Yield means income and growth, but particularly income. And if you bought an office, a strata office for $500,000, as a rough guide, you could get 7% net return on that, which is about $35,000 a year. Or, oh no, sorry, 7% is much higher than that, beg your pardon. Well, let's just use a 10% figure. A 10% is $50,000. So that's about $1,000 a week. And that's a lot of money on $500,000. Whereas a rental on a residential would be more closer to something like about $500 a week, not $1,000 a week. In other words, $500 a week rental for a residential on a $500,000 property. However, there's also another difference, that when you rent out a residential, the owner gets to pay the rates and taxes, the insurance, he gets to pay and look after the depreciation. When the tap leaks, he's got to come and fix it. And he gets a 6-month lease, and you know, if he gets a renter, he gets a renter. If he gets someone who's not paying the rent, takes quite a bit to get them out of there. It's quite a complex thing and difficult. A commercial property, a $500,000 property on $1,000 a week, that is a net figure. Or if it's $750 a week, it's still a net figure. In other words, they pay the rates and taxes. They pay all the outgoings. They pay for all the renovations and repairs inside. They never ring you up about the tap because they put the tap in. They did the fit out. Can you see? It's a very different thing. And it's a 5-year lease with a 5-year option and another option for 5 years. And it's a personal guarantee. And the person usually owns a house. So it's a much stronger lease, much more powerful, and usually a 50% more yield or even 100% more yield. And the commercial rental has got a 4% rise on it per year, or an escalation clause inbuilt into that. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a throat. I've been talking all day today at the seminar. So just a much stronger thing. Now, most people aren't really familiar with this area. It's not the area we normally throw people into. We start with residential, little flicks, do 3 or 4 of those, do 2 or 3 makeovers or renovations. Maybe we do a little granny flat, then we might do a subdivision. When we've done about 10 of these transactions, we might be going into commercial. And the commercial safety area is usually offices. We also teach commercial areas such as industrial buildings, and we also teach shops and restaurants. I mean, that's getting really more risk and obviously higher yields often. So these are things we teach. Excuse me. These are things that are important to learn. These are things that you would structure yourself or stage yourself to learn at the speed you want to. And I say to people, you're going to be in real estate the rest of your life, so you might as well learn. I was talking to the group today, excuse me, at business owners, and I was just talking to them about the importance of owning a commercial building and the importance of owning the commercial building that you run your business from. There is more money in the commercial building often than there is in the entire business. Here I'm recording this session from our Varsity Lakes property. We own this building, we own the one next door, and we own the one across the way. And we rent the others out. But we're doing something really, I call the McDonald's plan, and it's not just Roy McDonald plan, it's the McDonald's hamburger plan. What is the McDonald's plan? Well, I think you may believe that they're fairly smart operators, the McDonald's brothers, when they got involved in this and when Ray Kroc started the McDonald's organization for himself. He was 54 years old. He didn't have any money. And he built the first McDonald's on a rental site. He actually rented the site for 20 years, at 5 + 5 + 5 + 5. He got his first franchisee to build the first McDonald's. He rented it back to that franchisee for 20% more rent than he was paying himself for 20 years. He did that 10,000 times before he died. 10,000 times. 20% increase on rent you're paying for 20 years, 10,000 times. Think of the leverage of that. McDonald's is a great industry to watch. They now provide 1% of the food on the planet. A new McDonald's opens up every 17 hours. It's a real estate company, as you know. They're the largest distributors of toys in the world, and they give the toys away. Imagine a real estate company that opens a new real estate investment every 17 hours. So there's a great example for you to consider when you look at that commercial operation. And I want you also to consider the magic that McDonald's uses for turning income into capital gain. And this is a bit complex, but I'm going to go there anyway. And you can play this recording over again if you need to understand it. Or play it for your dad or your mum or somebody. Or play it to a financial advisor and see if they understand. What happens when you buy a piece of commercial real estate and you buy it in a separate trust to a business that's renting it? The company that rents it, if it's your business, that rental is a tax deduction in the hands of that business. In other words, rent is tax deductible. On the other side of this equation, with a corporation that owns the building, which could be your corporation, you receive that interest payment, that rent payment, and it's being offset by interest being paid, which is also a tax deduction. So the business gets a rental tax deduction. The recipient of the money, you, through a corporation, receives that rent, but offsets it from an interest on the loan to own the property. So from a tax point of view, you win because you're the company that is renting the property. And what happens, the more rent you pay, the higher the property is valued. And that means the higher the yield, the higher the value. So the more tax deductions you get, the higher the value of the building because you're paying yourself indirectly. And of course, what happens, the building goes up in value. So you've turned an income, an expense, which is tax deductible, into capital gain. Is that magical or is that magical? And there are tremendous tax benefits for this and tremendous tax opportunities for this. For instance, I don't want to give you tax advice, but as I understand it from the advisors we work with, accountants, they tell us that if you hold a property for 17 years in this country, small business owner, there's certain rules, but they're very simple. And you buy that property for, say, $1 million and sell it for $4 million, you don't pay any capital gains tax. Now, that's a good thing to know. Excuse me. So you can see why buildings, commercial, owning property as a vehicle is very important. Excuse me. So in this little brief discussion, I've spent a fair bit of time on property because property is important. I've covered a couple of issues. One is flicking properties. One is buy and hold. One is buy and hold commercial. You can buy and hold residential, but the yield is not as high. You can even flick commercials if you want. You can also use a super fund to do both. And although the rules are very clear, one of them is that you can't use your primary place of residence for that super fund, but you can buy a lot of different properties as long as it's a long arm transaction, and you can borrow money and you can joint venture. There's a lot of things you can do, but it needs to be done with precision, with great advice and great deal of clarity. But I want to let you to leave this conversation with the fact that you don't need any money and you don't need to pay stamp duty. You don't even need a bank. There is many other ways of doing this, and what it's all about is finding and locating the right properties. We use a whole lot of systems in our Life Magic program to show you, using RP data, doing acquisition agents. We use different formats to deal with things where an agent works for you, not just as a buyer's agent, but as an acquisition agent. Anyway, more of this later, but you get the general idea. There are ways to do things which are different from the way you may think you have to. And when you open up this expanded awareness, when you open up this different way of doing things, then you can start focusing on what you want. The second area is business. Now, we spend a lot of time on another day in our program, a full day, to help people start a business, to help people sell businesses, to help people build businesses. They're usually 3-year projects. First year, get your house in order. Second year, grow it. Third year, become free of it. And we start with, why would you go into business to start with? And some people say, oh, well, to get a better life, Roy, to work as my own boss, to get rid of the boss, to do what I want when I want. And what is the surprising thing is people end up with the worst boss in the world themselves. And this is important again to notice, but I have a thing about it, and I say the reason to go into business was to get your life back. Most people give their life to the business. Your job is to get your life back. Now, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't work for 3 months, 6 months, or a year and get your life back. This is a 3-year, 10,000-hour time. This can be 5 years. And it's just when you want to get started. And a lot of people get very upset about this and think that they can just go and get into business and do this tomorrow and then find that, and they can have their holidays when they want to and work when they want. And I just want to tell you that just isn't the way it is. But what I do know, absolutely, working for someone else endlessly for the next 10, 20 years and have no plan for this won't work. So unless you make an endeavor to do this and slowly do this transition and get into a position where you do have a business that works without you, then you've really got a business. Excuse me. So what are we saying here? Number one, make a business work for you. Get your life back. Number two, create an income stream that's consistent with your job. In other words, when business is bringing income in, it can roll around, you want it every month. just like a wage. And similar when you're working on real estate transactions, trading them, first year do 1 transaction, second year do 2, third year do 3. Even though you make $25,000, $50,000, that's a long time between drinks, as they say. So to get regular income is a very important thing. In our program, we work with what we call bricks and mortar businesses. We also work with businesses such as network marketing businesses. We work with online businesses. Kelvin's probably one of the smartest guys on the planet with his online marketing, and Kim, and to get onto that, and you may know other people. This is not an easy thing to do. It's just very simple, and again, takes a great deal of commitment. I like building businesses that I don't work in. However, I'm sure there's something you're passionate about, and that would be a great thing to do. So in our Life Magic, we work on that area and see which is the best one for you and where you're best suited. We work on hares and owls and tortoises and squirrels. We work with sharks and dolphins and whales. We work with urchins, deal makers, traders, and accumulators, and all different forms that we work on to make this work. So I'm really saying to you that there is a lot of aspects to this vehicle, and knowing yourself and where you best suit in this, and sitting on the right seat in the right bus is very important. So it's not done lightly. And the point I'd probably leave you with this one is that some people go and do a career for 20, 30, 40 years. Some people do 3 years at TAFE or 5 years at university, or if you're a doctor, 7 years of training. And then only to find you've got a job. Only to find that you've got this ladder of success leading against the wrong wall. And you've been climbing this ladder. Then you have to come down and find another wall. The work that we do is a lot simpler, I say, in a different university. However, it still takes a commitment, a vision. It takes an extra part of you, a mindset that's important. And I'm just wondering how we're going with that area of what is leadership? What is 9/10 of that? I'm still looking on the screen here. A lot of people sending lots of things in, but haven't said what I want. So I'm going to finish with the third area, equity or shares. Only 5, 10, 15% of the people that do our programs use this area. And I'm not a licensed person for this. I'm mainly a business person. I'm mainly a property person. But I've got some really great people who are dealers in derivatives, who do an hour and a half a day, and I've seen people make substantial sums. It takes a very precise person to do this. And I say to people, do not start this off with some vision you're going to make $1 million in the first year, or even $100,000. It's 3 to 6 months of paper trading before you start. You need $10,000, $15,000 to ultimately get into the market. And if you're very clever, and there's not many people do it, but if you're very, very clever, you'll do 100% return. That means you'll make $10,000 or $15,000 after about 18 months, because you usually use up the first 3 to 6 months getting ready. And how have you got this for the rest of your life? And that's great. And you can use more money later. On 4 months of the year, you'll lose money. 4 months of the year, you'll break even. 4 months of the year, you'll make a profit. And 10% of that will be your total profit for the year. So it's a very demanding and soul destroying for some, depending on what you do. There are covered calls, there's trading, day traders, there's long positions, short positions, and a whole range of things which I won't go into tonight. But let me say, you can use your super fund, you can use non-super fund. There's special advantages for that, tax advantages. In super funds, only 15% tax, which is the same as Hong Kong. So, but it must be done with precision. The Difference that I would say is that the reason I think 60% do property trading is they're more familiar with it, and property is very forgiving. In share trading or derivatives trading, it's very precise. The average trade on a day trader is 17 to 18 minutes long. And it can be very boring as you watch for an hour, hour and a half before you do a trade or don't do any trades that day. A lot of ducks have got to be lined up. And when you enter, you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to put stop loss orders in. It's quite complex. And there are special people that do it. Let me give you a clue. They're usually squirrels that do this. Squirrels with either owl or particularly tortoise tendencies. Very slow, very steady. Hares do not do this. It's funny how hares are the ones who usually sign up for share trading. So we're nearly out of time. So this is our plan. There's your vehicles. Excuse me, you've got to make a decision eventually, and I don't want you landing anywhere, but I'm going to leave you with a couple of quick things. Firstly, no one got it right, but there it is. You've got a discipline, consistent action. You've got lead by example. A whole range of people are saying things here. Respectful. The one, Claire, do you know what it is? Not sure. Okay. Just asking because we're Claire Bear here too. So what it is 9/10 of this leadership is know your outcome. Very simple, yes. A leader needs to be able to know their outcome, and their decisions that they make in that outcome is vital to leadership. So lead, follow, or get out of the way. To know your outcome, you need to be courageous, and you know courage comes before confidence. So you got to start with knowing your outcome. So if you start a business, you got to know your outcome. You got to know what you want to do with that, how much you want to work, what you want to do with it. That's courageous work. That's real leadership. So leadership is very, very important. Week 6 coming up. Now, week 6, we're going to be dealing with income, increasing income, cash flow. Going to be talking about learning how to do an investment, the importance of special documents that you're going to use, what we call important documents, which are like wills and your insurance policies, your super fund, those sorts of things. In fact, you can start getting a few of those ready. We're also going to talk about your home office. So I'm going to leave you with one thought, and that is that you're under new management. I want you to say to yourself, I'm under new management, like a sign on your forehead. I'm under new management. Imagine if we came into your place and we sacked everyone that was running your business for you and your life up to date and said, I'm getting rid of them and I'm taking over. Because the funny thing is, if you're happy about the last 5 years, don't change a thing. The next 5 years will be identical. And there'll be parts of last 5 years that were good, but there's a lot of last 5 years perhaps not so good. So if you want to change, you need to change. And I want to say to you that change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Growth is optional. So God bless you all. Namaste to you. Look forward to seeing you on our next session, which will be in 7 days, and leave you with any communication with me at I've got to get it right because we got it confused. That's right, alchemy@onelife.com.au, alchemy@onelife.com.au. And if you missed your pack and you still want to get your pack for the special 287, then that's available on www.onelife.com.au/abundance. I'll repeat, www.onelife, all lowercase, .com.au/abundance. Have a great weekend. Work on all of your catch-ups if you need to do those. Namaste. Oh, my voice, talking all day.